Oral Roberts, meanwhile, trying to pull off a stunner as a 15 against Ohio State, who fell to Illinois in the Big Ten Tournament Championship. What chance do you give them against the Buckeyes?
They could have Oral Roberts, Billy Graham. Who's another evangelist out there? It don't matter.
Jimmy Swagger?
Swagger, whoever. It's over quick. This is over quick. Ohio State is another team that I've heard people say can win the whole thing, not just get to the Final Four. I think this is a 20-point win for Ohio State.
All that homework you did, and you didn't even bring up that Oral Roberts from Tulsa, Oklahoma, has the nation's leading scorer, Max Abmas, A-B-M-A-S, who's averaging over 24 points a game, nearly 90% from the foul line, and he's a sophomore, 6'1" guard. How did he end up at Oral Roberts as a sophomore? Who missed the boat at Tulsa or Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State's got Cade Cunningham, we'll get to in a moment. How do you not get this kid? Mad Max is going to put Oral Roberts in the lead at halftime, and then the second half they're going to get blown away. They're going to be winning at halftime and lose this game.
You dope.
Give me the Buckeyes. But for a half, we're going to be talking about Oral Roberts. For a half.
This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Halfway right. Do I get half a point for that, Dino? I guess not.
Hey, I tell you what, man, what a win that was.
What a day of college hoops to review with you and get you set for on this glorious Saturday, the 20th day of March, the year 2021. And oh yeah, we've got some high school football to talk about with you later on as well. It is 757 Saturday Sports Talk, powered by Larry King Law here on ESPN Radio 94.1. If you're injured in an accident, you call 757-INJURED for Larry King, and we'll open up the phone lines for you to give us a holler if you'd like to talk about the tournament from yesterday, how your bracket is doing, how things are going in the world of high school football, or anything sports related, especially a local Hampton Road 757 flavor. Just dial us up at 757-687-9494. We'll have a poll question up in a little bit on our 757 Sports Talk Twitter page, as well as the question of the day. And by the way, tomorrow we reveal our bracket for the lookalikes. You'll see Dino's twin and you'll see Ed's twin, and you can vote to see if they advance past the round of 64. Last year's champ was Kenneth Harris, the Green Run basketball coach, and Rick Ross, his lookalike, beating out Pat Doolin, the former Churchland Hoops coach, and his lookalike, the commish, Michael Chiklis, as that was the final. I believe the national semifinals, as I go to that bracket from last year. It was a great Final Four. I don't think any one seeds got to the final. I thought it might be, Mike Smith and Captain Kangaroo, Dino. They didn't get there. I thought it might be Dr. Phil and the Swedish Chef. They didn't get there, but Kenneth Harris won the bracket. The Final Four other ones included Mel Brooks and Lee Corso, as well as Bill Parcells and Colin Montgomery. So those will also be back, but we'll have, I think, 60 brand spanking new ones to go with the four that made the Final Four a year ago.
All right, looking forward to that. By the way, how did that work out last year? Did you get a really good response on that?
We got both. People either loved it or hated it. There was really no in between. So they reacted, which means you do it again, right?
Right.
They either loved it or they hated it. So before we fire up the scoreboard and go through yesterday's madness in college basketball, some quick headlines and takeaways. Number one takeaway, Dino, is trust your eyes. And what I mean by trust your eyes is, look, there's somebody, I filled out like 25 different brackets. So if you want to ask how you did on your bracket, most of them, they stink. I'm 8-8 in the main one I did with Ed for our radio, Twitter followers, social media followers purposes. I was 11-5 of one of my pay pools. I think I'm like 8-8 or 9-7 other pay pool. I actually have a bracket that's actually 13-3, but I'm all over the place with the brackets. Some of them I teased that I liked. Some of them I didn't have the guts to take. I liked North Texas last week in the Conference USA Championship. Oh, by the way, Conference USA continues to haunt the Big Ten as they did a few years back with Middle Tennessee beating Michigan State. This time it was a CUSA school taking down Purdue as Old Dominion came short a couple years back. This time North Texas does it in OT. Number two takeaway is, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the first one, it coincides with it, don't buy into everyone on this upset. And i.e., that's Winthrop. Everybody all week was telling you about Winthrop. They're going to beat Villanova. Villanova's got a couple guys out, most notably Gillespie. And what does Villanova do? They turn around with Jay Wright, who will be in the bracket lookalike tomorrow, by the way. I can't tell you what seed and who his twin is. But they get it done. Great game from Mr. Robinson Earl as they win it last night. But the major headlines, takeaways, Oral Roberts, what a story they are as a 15th seed, the Cinderella, the Big Ten, which I heard Kevin Harlan yesterday, one of the voices, part of the outstanding tournament coverage that you catch right here on ESPN Radio 94.1 with our friends from Westwood One. He said, best conference in the country. Hard to dispute that. However, 0-3 in overtime for the Big Ten, Dino, the 15 seeds and the 13 seeds, knocking them out. Maybe it's the Big 12.
I didn't realize that.
Maybe it's the Big 12. I mean, I said before the season I thought the Big 12 was, not every year, it's usually the ACC. For years and years and years, it's been the ACC or the Big East.
It's been a down year for the ACC.
No kidding. 4 teams from the ACC lose on the same day. It's never happened before in the history of the tournament. And remember, the ACC came into this tournament with more wins than any other conference and more wins than any other conference the last 5 years by a good margin. Florida rallied from 10 down to beat Virginia Tech. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But the Big 12, I thought before the year, was the deepest and maybe the best this year. And we'll see how the Big 12 does with some of those other teams in action today, like Kansas, who's coming off a pause, with Texas, who's got a local standout. State of Texas, by the way, 5-0 for them. The Lone Star State might be playing the best college basketball of any state in the country. And you mentioned it in the Sports Center update there. Roy Williams losing in the first round for the first time ever. And Rutgers, what's new, Mr. Magoo? They get their first tournament win since 1983.
And you would never think of Rutgers winning a tournament game. They did, though, and it's just been a weird year. You know, look at Rutgers, a team you wouldn't expect to win.
No.
And then you look at Ohio State, and they crushed a lot of brackets yesterday by going down to Oral Roberts. So you figure that one out.
I had the Buckeyes in a couple of Final Fours.
Wisconsin, though, with that big clutch game last night against North Carolina.
And you know what's crazy about that? I had Wisconsin in my bracket with Ed here going to the Elite Eight. And I'm going to stand by it now. I'm back on the bandwagon. But in most of my pay brackets I got off them. And I said before the season my Final Four was Gonzaga, UVA, Creighton, who we'll see later today against UC Santa Barbara, upset-minded as many of these double-digit seeds are. And I had UVA, Gonzaga winning it all before the season, Creighton, and Wisconsin going to a Final Four. Badgers, they tease us all year, and then yesterday, just with a marvelous performance, Roy Williams losing in the first round for the first time ever. He looked just drained last night. Watched his post-game presser. I mean, we had Andrew Jones on a couple weeks back from Tar Heel Illustrated, the UNC rival site. And 2 others, Huggy Bear, Bob Huggins getting his 900th career win. First time, though, since 1979. No Duke, Kentucky, or North Carolina. Of course, Duke and Kentucky did not make the field of 68. No Duke, Kentucky, or UNC in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, it's going to be the whole basketball season has felt so different than any other anyway. But now, with the lack of some of the schools that we've seen historically not there now. And you look at like Oral Roberts doing what they did yesterday. Norfolk State, for them to get where they are. I mean, you got to remember in the MEAC tournament, they got into that championship game because of North Carolina A&T having to bow out because of COVID issues. So it's been that kind of year. And let's just face it, Duke and Kentucky, they weren't that good this year. But for Carolina to go out last night like they did, the ACC's. Could you imagine? Not going to say it's going to happen tonight, but could you imagine? And they're coming off their shutdown. Could you imagine if the Cavaliers lose tonight?
Oh, it would be very difficult, brutal for the ACC. And we'll go through the matchups for today on the radio TV side of things. Get you set for tomorrow. You'll hear from some Norfolk State flavor today, the coach Robert Jones, as well as Jalen Hawkins, who had the marvelous performance in the first 4 win over Appalachian State. What a roller coaster game that was. You'll also hear from Tony Bennett of UVA in the next hour of the show. We'll be joined by Bryson Spell, young man from Cape Henry Collegiate, who hopes to one day go dancing at Cincinnati, where he made his college basketball commitment this week. But let's fire up the scoreboard and review what happened yesterday if you missed it, as we do it basketball style here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1. We'll begin with that Oral Roberts win over Ohio State. Buckeyes go down 75-72 in overtime, one of the 3 OT specials from yesterday, Dino. And Oral Roberts getting it done with a young man, Max Abmas. I butchered the name earlier. He's the Steph Curry of the Summit League, pronounced A-C-E-M-U-S-S, but spelled A-B-M-A-S. What a game he had for the Oral Roberts Eagles, getting it done. The Oral Roberts University, 75-72. Abmas goes in and drops a marvelous performance for him. Just, stupendous. 29 points, 5 of 10 from deep, 5 boards, 3 assists. But Kevin O'Banner, not to be forgotten about either, 30 points for him, 11 rebounds, 5 of 12 from deep. They hit 11 threes. Buckeyes get beat from long distance and really didn't get it done in terms of transition. Only 7 fast break points for Ohio State. Oral Roberts turns it over just 6 times. Great job by Oral Roberts. They move on as a 15 seed, just the 9th time ever in the history of the NCAA tournament. First win for them since 1974. Going into yesterday, all time, the 2 seeds were 132-8 against the 15 seeds. Only Florida Gulf Coast with Lob City got to the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed. We'll see if Oral Roberts can get it done as they'll take on the Florida Gators, chomping it up. No Keontae Johnson, who had that scary collapse we saw back in the holiday season around there, November, December, when that happened. The Norview High standout. Oh, by the way, there was just 6 turnovers, not 8, I said, for Oral Roberts, just 6 in a game. Florida did a great job, though. This was a really interesting game with the Hokies and Virginia Tech yesterday, Dino, as Florida wins it in overtime. Tech had a big lead early on in the game. There was 12 ties, 4 lead changes. You saw Virginia Tech race out to a good lead, and then Florida came back second half. It looked like the Hokies were struggling with pick and roll, defending it. Naheem Aline gets hot all of a sudden. He drops 28 points, game tie in 3 late, but then the Gators win it in overtime. And the shot I think that did it was there was a big, not only a 3 in regulation late, but Trey Mann hit a step-back 3, and that felt like that was the one that broke the Hokies back yesterday.
Yeah, they played their hearts out. Just came up short there at the end, losing, by 5, I believe. 75-70 was the final?
It was. Gators with 4 guys in double figures. I thought the game, though, in a nutshell, if you go deep into the numbers, 36-22 on the glass, Florida beating them on the boards. And, Keve Aluma's had a great year for Virginia Tech, only had 7 points, 7 rebounds in this game, but Mike Young's done a marvelous job with that program to get as far as they did. They don't have Jalen Cohn at their availability, so a lot was leaned on from Aline and Tyrese Radford. Just inside, they don't have that major rim protector or big man to collect the boards and keep a team from gobbling up, and Colin Castleton hurt them yesterday with 14 boards to go with 19 points. So the Gators, who would have thought, most people figured they'd be done by round 2 for sure. They're probably going to be a hefty favorite for a Sweet 16 berth for them.
Yeah, who do they match up now with?
They get Oral Roberts.
Oh, they get Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you would have never seen that one coming.
Oh, not at all.
Just never.
In that South bracket, you're also going to have Texas Tech, the 6th playing Arkansas, the 3 seed tomorrow, Villanova, the 5 playing North Texas, the 13 seed, and Baylor, the 1 playing Wisconsin, the 9. How'd they get there? Baylor a winner 79-55 over Hartford. Never threatened in that one. Don't need to spend a lot of time of it. Wisconsin 85, UNC 62. Spend a moment on this game real quick. Badgers from deep, 13 of 27 from long range. Brad Davison scores his highest point total of the year, 29 points. Demetric Trice, 21 points. And you talk about rebounding. UNC had only been out-rebounded like 2 or 3 times the whole year. They get beat on the glass 37-34. And you should read the UNC message board today. They are just absolutely lighting them up. You would think Roy Williams has never won a title before. He has. He's got a few of them rings in his back pocket there from his days at UNC. He was kind of snake-bit in his years at Kansas. But my, oh my, they are just absolutely crucifying the Heels today. Listen, it's a COVID year, and it's not like Wisconsin has chopped liver here. They only turned it over 7 times. As much as you want to fry the Buckeyes and the Heels today, give some props to Wisconsin and Oral Roberts. Those guys answered big play after big play. Certainly, Ohio State made more big plays to make that thing interesting. Wisconsin won in a rout against UNC, so maybe you're a little critical of the effort for the Heels there. But this is a tough year. You're in a really strange situation with all the protocols. It's hard to beat up these young kids. They're not getting paid here. They're amateurs.
Yeah, but you mentioned the message board there at UNC. That just goes to show how spoiled the fans are. Spoiled
babies. Get over yourselves. You won all these championships. It's time for somebody else to win. Please. Goodness. How about Villanova? They won it 73-63 over Winthrop. We mentioned what a game Jeremiah Robinson Earl turned in for Jay Wright's Wildcats. He had 22 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, working on a triple-double. And Justin Moore, who we weren't sure was going to play, had 15 points for Nova in that one. We'll get to some Virginia flavor and how some of those guys did in the tournament. Not a whole lot of guys in action yesterday from the Commonwealth in terms of those that played their high school basketball here in the 757 RVA. We'll have more today with Matt Coleman, obviously, at Texas, his younger brother Chase at UVA. But you see the bracket there, as we now have Nova moving on, Wisconsin moving on. What else is going on in terms of the NCAA tournament? It was Purdue losing to North Texas 78-69. Did you hear Javion Hamlet's post-game Dino yesterday? 78-69, the young man who was North Texas' leading scorer, he basically said in a nutshell, we don't have the sound. He's like, hey, now you know who I am. I'm not afraid of anybody. Come after me. Yeah. He's a little chesty today. I kind of like it, Mr. Hamlet. 24 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. You got room to talk.
Well, he does play for the Mean Green.
There you go. He's throwing that mean green fighting machine as he's got that face on for them. As we move down to the other bracket here, as we mentioned, by the way, Texas Tech 65-53. They got a guy from Virginia real quickly. He's not from the 757, but he's the all-time leading scorer in Virginia High School League history. He broke Allen Iverson's record. AI, the answer, who played at Bethel High, but Mac McClung led the way for Texas Tech with 16 points in their win over Utah State, who I thought had a pretty decent chance in this game. Dino, though it came in a losing effort, this caught my eye. Neemias Queta for Utah State had 7 blocks yesterday.
7 blocks?
7. There's a lot of teams that don't get that in a game, including Texas Tech just had 3 as a team, but Mr. Queta had 7 of those suckers to go with 11 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. Maybe he's a draft pick. We shall see.
Well, I tell you what, you have many games like that. Yeah, definitely a draft pick.
Arkansas winner over Colgate real quick before we go to the other bracket, 85-68. Dino, I was loving Colgate early. They were looking like the old Cornell teams, hitting threes.
Yep.
They made 12 of them for the game, but Arkansas caught up to them. They got to the foul line. Justin Smith had a day, 29 points, 13 rebounds, 5 steals. They kind of got up in their face and in your space, to use the old expression that Lake Taylor football coach Hank Sawyer says with his defense. 22 of 29 from the foul line, and Colgate just ran out of gas after getting that 14-point lead. You felt like once Arkansas had that 17-0 run to get to halftime up 3, they were going to pull away, but Colgate hung with them for about a good 6-7 minutes the second half, and then just ran out of gas.
Yeah, it was a great game to watch. I was here at work, but I had it on in the background, and I just had to keep looking every once in a while because it was fantastic. I mean, it was a game of runs too, because you had Colgate with that real nice run where they took the double-digit lead. Arkansas had to storm back, and then it was a ball game after that.
Dino's got to figure out who he's rooting for in this one. You got Illinois playing Loyola Chicago in the Midwest round of 32 as the Illini dusted off CAA tournament champ Drexel 78-49 behind Ayo Dosunmu, 17 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals. 7th career double-double for him. He's a likely first-round pick. They also got Kofi Coburn inside, who was a terror. And Loyola Chicago, Sister Jean, is back on the big stage. They beat Georgia Tech 71-60. Yellow Jackets shorthanded without ACC player of the year Moses Wright, and that made a difference.
Yeah, she was there. They wheeled her out in the chair, and it was a good win again for them. You know, and like you said, got a matchup now with Illinois. If they could win that, it would be a huge shocker. I just don't see it happening. The Illini looked really good. Then again, it was Drexel, team from the Colonial, but still, could you imagine if they come out and have that Cinderella run like they had, 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh, it would be something else. If they beat Illinois, that's going to bust even more brackets. You can pretty much just tear mine up.
But the Illini have a chance to, I'm not saying maybe duplicate the 2005 season where they made it to the championship game against North Carolina and lost, but they could really go deep in this tournament.
They certainly can. I mean, they're figured as one of the favorites beyond Gonzaga. You pretty much, if you're picking someone not named Gonzaga to win this tournament, the first couple choices that come to mind are Illinois and Baylor for most people. Oklahoma State beats Liberty 69-60. Flames try to make it to the round of 32 for the second time in 3 years. Didn't happen. They had a 6-point lead late in the first half. They made 8 3-pointers, but Oklahoma State gets it done. And Cade Cunningham, the presumptive first pick overall. We'll spend some time later on, either in this show or future shows, about that. I think he's a wondrous talent. I'm not entirely convinced. I want to see a little more before I go all in on him as the first pick. He was just 3 of 14 from the field, 15 points. They win in spite of that over Liberty. And it means the Cowboys, the Pokes, are going to play Oregon State. The Beavers beat Tennessee 70-56. Dino, I did not see this one coming. Oregon State was picked last in the Pac-12. They win the Pac-12 tournament. They hit a bunch of threes, and they were never challenged by Rick Barnes and the Volunteers at all yesterday.
No, they weren't. Wasn't even a game.
No, not at all. Oregon State just pretty much handled Tennessee. Did not see that coming at all. Tennessee just 5 of 26 from deep, and Oregon State +7 on the boards. Did a really good job defensively in that one. Ethan Thompson led the way with 13 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists to fill the stat sheet. And to conclude the tournament there in the Midwest, Syracuse beats San Diego State 78-62. How about my buddy Boeheim, the last 3 games, 89 points, 31 of 48 from the field, that's 64.6%. And he's 18 of 30 from 3 at 60% behind the arc. Jim's son, he can play ball.
Yeah, and Jim can coach. If you look at him now, 8-2 as a double-digit seed in the NCAA tournament.
He'll get a Huggy Bears group as West Virginia pulls away from Morehead State. This one got interesting for about a good 4 or 5 minutes in the second half. You got down to about a 3-4 point game, but West Virginia pulls it out behind 30 points from Miles McBride, who also had 6 rebounds, 6 assists in that one. Only 9 trips to the foul line for Morehead State. And the last matchup there in the Midwest in the round of 32 is going to be Rutgers, who beat Clemson 60-56, and Houston absolutely throttling Cleveland State 87-56. I know it was a 2 versus 15 matchup. Hey, the other 2 went down yesterday, but I thought Houston was the most impressive looking team yesterday. That game was about a 5-point game. In fact, it was 37-29 at the half, and then I look over about 20 minutes later, that game was just out of reach. Houston hit him with a blitz. We'll see if Kelvin Sampson can finally get over that hump at Houston, because a few years back, if you remember, he lost on that buzzer beater from Jordan Poole in Michigan. This team could be one of those teams people aren't talking about as a 2 seed to get to the Final Four.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to see any of that game, but all you have to do is look at the score and know it was an impressive win.
And they did it only shooting 47%. You'd think they might have shot in the 60% mark. Didn't happen yesterday. By the way, Georgia Tech was the first team since Georgetown, when they lost to Steph Curry and Davidson, which you got to go all the way back to 2008, to lose a tournament game shooting 60% from the field. So Loyola was able to just match them offensively with big plays. So that will wrap up the scoreboard here, as we'll get to some high school football scores when we come back and open up the phone lines at 757-687-9494 right here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1.